Hey everybody, it's Mallory here with All About Cats. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look at one of the biggest cat food brands in the business, and one that a lot of you guys have been asking for our thoughts on. And that brand is Blue Buffalo. So before we jump into the review, I want to remind you guys that there is video navigation in the description, so there will be timestamps allowing you to jump to any part of the video that piques your interest. That being said, I think it's appropriate to start at the beginning. So what is Blue Buffalo and where does it come from? So Blue Buffalo dates back to 2002 and it was founded by a guy named Bill Bishop. This guy has a really solid resume and has been in the marketing and advertising business for decades. So he's worked with big names like Tropicana, American Express, Perrier, Nabisco. Bishop was one of the co-founders of Sobe and served as its COO until it was sold to Pepsi in 2001. It was shortly after that he decided to take his know-how and put it into a pet food company. And so shortly thereafter, Blue Buffalo was born. So that's kind of the background on the Blue Buffalo company, but what kind of food do they actually offer? So the Blue Buffalo brand is all about this idea of natural pet food. So while the word natural doesn't really have any regulatory definition, it has a definite meaning in our minds, right? And Blue Buffalo basically lines up with the idea of natural pet foods. So for example, Blue Buffalo foods don't contain any artificial colors. It also doesn't contain those potentially harmful preservatives like BHA and BHT. Their foods are available in both wet and dry varieties and come in 7 different lines. So again, all of these foods follow that sort of natural food blueprint, but that doesn't mean that they're not extremely diverse. So again, you have wet and dry foods available, limited ingredient diets, foods that contain a lot of different protein sources, foods that contain a lot of plant matter, foods that don't contain a lot of plant matter. They have options for cats of different life stages, so you can buy kitten food or food for older cats. You can also choose recipes that are formulated with indoor cats in mind. So you really have quite a breadth of options coming from Blue Buffalo. So now that we've gotten introduced to the Blue Buffalo lineup, I think it's a good idea to talk about their sourcing and manufacturing. So Blue Buffalo doesn't provide any details on their ingredient sourcing. Now this is probably just because they're sourcing ingredients from a wide variety of suppliers, probably suppliers from around the world, and their ingredient sourcing isn't really a big part of their brand. It's not exactly clear where all Blue Buffalo foods are manufactured. It does appear that all of their foods are manufactured in the United States, but they work with a variety of manufacturers and they haven't released a complete list of every company that they work with. In addition to those co-packers, Blue Buffalo operates 2 manufacturing facilities of their own located in Indiana and Missouri. So the main reason why you even want to know where your cat's food is manufactured is so that you can get a better sense for where it's coming from and whether or not it's going to be safe. Another way that you can evaluate this is by looking at the company's recall history. Blue Buffalo has been recalled a few different times over the last 18 or so years. In 2007, Blue Buffalo was involved in those massive nationwide melamine recalls. So their food contained rice protein that was contaminated with toxic melamine. 3 years later, Blue Buffalo recalled several of their products due to excessive levels of vitamin D. In 2015, Blue Buffalo issued 2 recalls. The first of those recalls involved their Kitty Yums treats, when it was discovered that those treats contained propylene glycol, which is prohibited by the FDA. And then in the fall of 2015, they had a slightly less significant recall, which involved a single lot of dog bones that was contaminated with salmonella. In 2016, Blue Buffalo issued a recall because their dog food had a little too much moisture, and that could lead to mold contamination. And in 2017, Blue Buffalo issued 3 different recalls. So first off, they had an issue with the packaging on some of their dog food cups. And then there was an issue with potential aluminum contamination in their dog food. And then the following month, Blue Buffalo issued another recall due to potentially excessive levels of beef thyroid hormone. So in total, Blue Buffalo has been involved in 8 different recalls since 2007. And that's not the end of Blue Buffalo's issues. So in 2014, Purina accused Blue Buffalo of false advertising. So it was found that Blue Buffalo foods tested positive for animal byproducts, ingredients that Blue Buffalo says they never use. Now, Blue Buffalo blamed their ingredient supplier, saying that they had no idea that those byproducts were being put in their food and that their ingredient supplier was being, I guess, unscrupulous. So overall, Blue Buffalo's history seems a little bit concerning. So everything that we've gone over so far is valuable, but it doesn't really tell us the most important things we need to know about Blue Buffalo food. I think in order to really get a sense for what Blue Buffalo brings to your cat's bowl, it's going to be important to look at some specific recipes and evaluate their nutritional merits. So first off, let's take a look at Blue Wilderness Adult with Chicken, grain-free dry cat food. So first off, the name. When a cat food claims to be made with chicken, it means it's not primarily made from chicken. There's a lot more going on in this recipe. So when we flip the bag around and take a look at the ingredient list, we can see that there's quite a bit more going on in here than just fresh chicken. So of course, the recipe does begin with deboned chicken and chicken meal. The next ingredient is pea protein, which is a concentrated source of, pea protein, and distinct from those first two ingredients in that it is a source of plant protein. So those are the main ingredients of the food. It also contains a lot of sort of nutraceuticals, a lot of different fruits and vegetables scattered in there. It contains probiotics and prebiotics, theoretically supporting digestive health. Overall, it looks like this food has a fairly decent combination of animal-derived protein, animal-derived fat, and then, a smattering of these sort of nutraceutical ingredients that could help to support your cat's overall well-being. Overall, the food is about 49% protein, 22% fat, and 28% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis. So this food costs about 18 cents per ounce. The next recipe that we're going to take a closer look at is their Indoor Health chicken and brown rice recipe. So this is another dry cat food, this time formulated, or at least marketed, for indoor cats. So this food's first three ingredients look kind of similar to those of the last recipe we mentioned. So it contains deboned chicken, chicken meal, and Manhattan fish meal as its main protein sources. Not bad. But then the food goes into a lot of really starchy, high carbohydrate grain ingredients. So you've got brown rice, you've got barley, you've got oatmeal, peas, and pea protein. So quite a lot of really starchy, really high carbohydrate ingredients with not a lot of nutritional value for your cat, and then a little pop of plant-based protein. So overall, this is looking like a pretty plant-heavy food and not one that really honors your cat's needs as a carnivore. So on a dry matter basis, it looks like this food is about 39% protein, 18% fat, and 43% carbohydrates. So that's a pretty starchy food. A lot of cats like this food though. It gets really positive customer reviews and a lot of people are really happy with it. But nutritionally, this really doesn't meet our standards. So like the food from the Wilderness line reviewed previously, this food costs about 18 cents per ounce. I've seen some other listings where it costs closer to 15 cents per ounce. So you're going to be spending probably something in between 30 and 40 cents per day for this food. All right, so let's move into our third and final up-close product review. So this time we're going to be taking a look at a canned food from their Wilderness line. So this is a turkey pate that's primarily made from turkey, turkey broth, and turkey liver. So it looks like a nice combination of muscle meat and organs are taking up some significant real estate on that ingredient list. Later on the ingredient list, though, the food contains potatoes. The food also contains guar gum, which is a generally safe thickener. It contains some flaxseed, which can be a good source of fiber, but it also contains carrageenan, which is another thickener, kind of like guar gum, but it's one that has this reputation for creating inflammation or worsening inflammation, and which could be carcinogenic. Carrageenan is one that I would always try to avoid when looking for cat food. In addition to that carrageenan, the food contains some cassia gum, a third thickener. Overall though, this food looks like a fairly species-appropriate option. So it appears to be about 42% protein, 46% fat, and 12% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis. So that's a little bit more carbohydrate content than is ideal, but it's still within kind of a decent range. So if your cat is like most and requires about 200 calories per day, this food is going to cost roughly $1 per day. So it's a pretty economical choice. All things considered, I don't think that Buffalo cat food is one of the best brands on the market, even though it is one of the most popular. So here's how it rates according to the We're All About Cats standard. In terms of ingredient quality, Blue Buffalo is doing a little bit better than some other brands. If you believe that they're not including byproducts in their recipes, that would put them a couple notches ahead of many other cat food brands. They seem to be using clearly named ingredients rather than those sort of generic ingredients like fish and poultry. So that's pretty good. So I'm going to give Blue Buffalo a 6 out of 10 score in terms of ingredient quality. Blue Buffalo is doing a slightly above average job of delivering species appropriate recipes. So it does look like their recipes emphasize animal ingredients as the first few protein sources in their recipes. And depending on which line you're choosing from, their foods can be relatively low in carbohydrates and plant ingredients compared to a lot of other cat foods on the market. So I would give them a 6 out of 10 in terms of species appropriateness. Our next rating category is product variety. As I mentioned earlier, Blue Buffalo offers an extensive variety of cat food and should have enough options to satisfy almost any cat. So we give it an 8 out of 10 score. As far as price is concerned, Blue Buffalo is doing really well. It's a relatively budget-friendly food and offers great prices compared to other similar products. We give it an 8 out of 10 score. As for customer experience, they're doing pretty well, but it's not perfect. Overall, I give them a 6 out of 10 in terms of customer experience. Now, as for recall history, I would give them a 3 out of 10 score. They're definitely below average in this category. So all in all, Blue Buffalo earns a 37 out of 60 score, according to the We're All About Cats standard, and that adds up to a C+ grade. So overall, Blue Buffalo is, again, one of the most popular cat food brands on the market, and they could be a good choice for some cats. I know a lot of people love and trust Blue Buffalo. But their recall history makes this brand kind of difficult for me to trust. Alright, so that is about it for our review of Blue Buffalo cat food. I hope that it gave you a better understanding of what Blue Buffalo is all about, what it has to offer, and if it could be a good choice for your cat. If you're interested in any of the products mentioned here, you'll find links in the description to all of them so you can learn more about them for yourself. You'll also, of course, find a link to the complete written version of this review, which goes into a lot more detail on everything mentioned here. And while you're in the description, you'll find a link to our free recall alert program. So this is one of the best ways to stay in the loop and stay informed and keep your cat safe. So go ahead and sign up to that recall alert program, and you'll get the news every time that there's another recall in the United States. Again, I hope that you found this video helpful. We put out a new video every week, so if you're interested in more reviews like this one, buyer's guides, and information on all things cats, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll get the news every time we put out a new video. Thank you so much. Bye.